The height of mountains, buildings, and even the pyramid itself could not have existed or discovered without the basic principles of trigonometry. Things we see every day are fundamentally built by the principles of trigonometry, let alone the usage of sine, cosine, and tangent. But how do they help calculate the length of triangles? How can this principle apply to real-life situations, where we could measure the length or height of an object with just an angle and a base length? All of these questions can be answered through a simple device that, despite no clear inventor, rose during the 19th century, revolutionizing the way we calculate trigonometry, and that is the clinometer. But first off, what is a clinometer? A clinometer is a type of mathematical device that is used in order to calculate the angle of elevation, or the angle that is placed at the bottom of the triangle, placed in where the longest line, otherwise known as the hypotenuse, starts to rise from the ground in a right angle triangle, which in trigonometry can be used for all sorts of things. Simple, right? But how does it work?
Now, how does a clinometer work itself? A clinometer measures the angle of elevation from a set point on the ground to the top of an object, forming a right-angled triangle. It typically consists of a protractor, a plumb line or a thread with weight, and a sighting tool. To use it, first align the clinometer with the object whose height you want to measure, then look through the sighting tool or align it with the reference point to aim at the top of the object. The plumb line will move, pointing to an angle on the protractor, which you then read as the angle of elevation. Now, using trigonometry or SOHCAHTOA, if you know the distance to the object or the base length, you can calculate its height using the tangent function, or height equals base times tan times angle. Now, to ensure accuracy in this calculation, adjust for eye level by adding your eye height to the calculated result. Thank you very much.
Okay, so what are some examples of situations where you can use a clinometer to solve real-world problems and equations? Let's use a streetlight, for example. Let's say you want to know exactly how tall the streetlight is vertically. So the first thing you want to do is get yourself your own homemade clinometer. Now, you're going to find the angle of elevation using the peephole located on the top of your clinometer. After that, you need to measure the distance between yourself and the streetlight. Let's say the angle of elevation you got is 75 degrees, and the distance you measure was 4 meters. Now, you know the angle of elevation and your adjacent angle. And because you're trying to find the height of the pole, that means you're looking for the opposite side length. Thus, with this information, we know we need to use tangent in our equation, as in SOHCAHTOA, tangent uses the opposite over the adjacent side length. So our equation comes out to tangent 75, which is the angle of elevation, is equal to x over 4, which happens to be the distance between yourself and the streetlight. Now we have to adjust the equation such that x becomes the subject, making it x is equal to 4 times tangent 75. When we put this into our calculator, we get the value 14.9 meters.
After this, we need to add the height of the individual, as our current measurement is from the position of our eyes. It needs to be from the ground level. Let's say the person is 2 meters tall, and after we add this, it ends up making our final height for the pole 17 meters.
So, how can we make our own clinometer at home with as minimal materials as possible? Well, it's quite simple actually, but first let's gather the materials. First, we need to prepare these items: our protractor, a trigger, something small to weight the clinometer, a thread, our ruler, and also some clear tape, or if you have a glue gun. But again, we're trying to make it as minimal material as possible and much more easier to do. Well, first, let's start by getting our thread and our clinometer. If you think the thread is too long, you can cut it down into smaller pieces. But for me, I'm gonna stick with this long. Secondly, let's grab our tape. And with the tape, we tape the thread to the edge of the protractor. If we put it in the middle, example, then the clinometer won't work as well. So to avoid that, we are gonna try to stick it at the edge while maintaining it at the 90-degree angle. See, it works perfectly now. Thirdly, let's grab the small item. For me, I'm gonna use eraser, but you can use balls. You can use a bigger eraser if you want more weight, but I'm gonna stick with this tiny one. So what you want to do with it is to tape it in the other end of the string. And there we go. It's completely tight and stick to the end of the thread. Voila, that's done. It's done. You can make. This is how you can make your own clinometer at home.
Oh yeah, and additionally, you could add a straw on the base of the clinometer to act as your sighting tool.
For the reflection, let's discuss the strength and weakness of a clinometer. First, let's discuss the strength. One core strength of the clinometer, especially the homemade ones, is the versatility. Especially since the device can be used with minimal materials, requires no electricity, and can be carried in our day-to-day life. Additionally, this device can give us fast data. Just bring it out, adjust the string, and then your data for the angle will be collected. But of course, the clinometer has some limitations as well. Sadly, the biggest limitations of the clinometer is its data accuracy. Due to the clinometer, especially the homemade version, being a bit fragile at times, things such as unstable weather, unstable hands, or even unstable structure can possibly remove the clinometer's reliability to make accurate measurements. Additionally, people need to understand trigonometry most of the time in order to use the clinometer to its maximum potential. But overall, despite the limitations of the clinometer, I feel like the clinometer can be a cool and important tool to have in our daily life, especially if we know trigonometry. Due to it being versatile and the ability to be able to measure angles in a snap, can have potential of being a useful tool in our life. Thanks for listening.